Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor dressed like a mime. I'm going to be reviewing the new album by Joey Bada, $$2000. Of course, it's really pronounced Joey Badass, but what do I know about Joey Badass? Not much. If you've been watching this channel, you know that I didn't pay attention to music in between about 2002 and 2018 when I started this channel. The last Joey Badass album was 5 years ago. So for the entire time I've been doing this channel, he's been sort of like a ghost, kind of hiding out at the edges of my consciousness. Every once in a while I'll hear people give, top 5 lists, and they'll list him, or they'll say, who's the realest MC out there? And I haven't known anything about him. So I was very happy to get this chance to listen to his music, to find out, is he as great as I think people say? And what I've discovered is he's pretty great. So the album's called 2000. And it's clear that it's a backwards-looking album. Okay, it's a throwback album. It doesn't sound like music from the 2000s to me. It actually sounds to me like music from the late 90s. And I don't mean like, it's not like a throwback in the same way that, Griselda is a Wu-Tang throwback. And it doesn't feel like some kind of Bruno Mars, like, look, I can do this style. Most of the production's handled by someone called Static Selecta, who's from Lawrence, Mass., which is just kind of funny. I've been to Lawrence. You don't expect great hip-hop to come out of Lawrence, Massachusetts, but there you go. And the throwback that I hear here is not even to the Ditty era, to Puff Daddy and Biggie, who are very large in this project. It's more than the Native Tongues era of hip-hop, which was sort of a loose collective that was sort of like one group and sort of not, of multiple different groups. We're talking the Jungle Brothers, Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul. And the similarities that I feel are these. These lyrics are good, they are witty, they are often conscious, but rarely preachy. There's basically no crime in here. It's generally uplifting. The beats are always good, but never quite like amazing, like the feeling I often had, and I'm even talking about bands like a Tribe Called Quest, okay, which, are legends. But even when I was growing up and I was listening to them, at times I felt like there just wasn't quite enough for me to hold on to. There wasn't quite enough sort of character in it, like maybe 1 or 2 songs, but something about the production made me feel less, like not as invested. I wouldn't say the same goes for De La Soul out of that group. Of all those groups, I think they're the most interesting in terms of their production. They're the most overlooked, they're the most forgotten, and they're the ones I'm going to be talking about the most in this video. I will say that like all those groups, like Biggie, like Puff Daddy, the thing I like about this album probably more than anything is how very New York it is. And it's not drill New York, and it's not like I've been around forever. It's not Jay-Z talking about New York or Nas talking about New York. It's somebody who's fairly young. He's 27 maybe, something like that, talking about New York and making a New York sounding rap album. Like there are albums that sound LA, right? Like you can just have an LA sounding album. And somehow that never really went out of style. And certainly albums can sound like Atlanta or can sound like Houston. But like a sort of like a New York City sounding album, which I think has, very pronounced drums, some sampling, but not too much, and just sort of a jazzy, cool feeling to it. That's how this album feels. But the whole time I'm talking about this as being some kind of retro look back thing. It's kind of ironic because the real themes of this album are the present. This is a celebration of life. It's an acknowledgement of death, but it's a celebration of life. It's a reminder to live in the present. For an album which, in theory, is completely looking backwards, in a genre which is usually spending a lot of time thinking forwards, it's kind of a Zen album. If we sort of look at it and take all the lyrics all into consideration, it really is about the importance of feeling gratitude and appreciation for the moment that you're in. I don't know how much crossover I get between like my pop videos and my rock videos and my rap videos, but I talked a lot about appreciation in my Billie Eilish video, about how it's the only active ingredient in happiness, and I think that's true. And that's what I really like about this album, is that it really appears to be somebody who is figuring out how to appreciate the good things in their life and sharing that appreciation with us. Other, little bit more minor themes, a fair amount of insecurity, I think. He sort of talks about how long he's been gone multiple times. He talks about how he's one of the greatest. But there feels like there's an insecurity there. And then finally, there's a lot of comedy. I think this guy just likes comedy. I'm going to be reviewing the Koreatown Oddity album later, which is just hilarious. It's a very funny album. And it's just kind of a reminder, if we're talking about the sort of this school of, the new school hip hop, as in like leaders of the new school, like the band, with Charlie Brown and Busta Rhymes and all that, and Jungle Brothers and De La Soul, this kind of area where there are all these great rappers coming out in New York and who are sort of the predecessors, a lot of what's considered to be non-mainstream rap. They're very serious, but they're also very funny. And I think that's probably tied into their intelligence. Humor and intelligence are inherently linked. It's just a thing. So it could be too that's... So anyways, I'll get into the comedy here. So I want to give you a stamp, an example song from... Wait a minute. Please smash the like bucket. Please subscribe. Jump on my Reddit. You can even join my TikTok if you want. I'm still figuring out that TikTok thing, but I'm getting there. And check out my secondary channel. This video is coming out late today because I went to go see Nope in IMAX, and I'm going to share my thoughts on that on my secondary channel. So I'm actually going to do that right after this. So go check it out. If you want to see someone dressed up like an old-time burglar. It's actually a Velvet Underground shirt that I have, but the way it's cut off doesn't look that way. So the stamp, example song. I don't usually do this, but the example song is the final track on the album, written in the stars. I'll include a link to it up there. Just click sort of a little bit away from the banana, a little bit away from Franz Kafka back there, right up in that region. This has a lot of the album on it. A lot of the spirit and the feel and the sonic ambition of the album. Now this song is completely all real live instruments, strings, horns, but just this great super syncopated drum beat underneath all of it. There's even some chimes on here. It feels very sort of What's Going On era Marvin Gaye as far as the way that it sounds. It has an intro from Ditty, Puff Daddy, who's... So I understand that Puff Daddy is a marketing genius and one of the most important figures in American history in terms of pop culture. But it's really hard for dudes my age who grew up with the Puff Daddy of I'll Be Missing You and the shiny suits to see him become this elder statesman. It's great. He's earned it. Like, I'm wrong for being derisive about it, but it is awfully funny that he's now this like venerated figure when I just sort of think of him as like that, yeah, guy. What I like about this song is it's just one verse. And there's a couple times on this album where he just really appears to just be like, oh, by the way, I'm a great rap artist. And just spits fire, right? And a lot of these themes of the need to be present are right here. You got to remember, no matter where you at, ish could always be worse. So it kind of like starts off with that basic idea that you need to be appreciative for how things are because they could always be worse. My stock like a teenage C word, it stays up. That's an example of the comedy, Like, he had to have that thought. He had to think about teenagers' erections and like throw that into his rhyme. And then he gets personal, and it seems, I don't know anything about this guy. Like, I just don't. Like, I know he's from Brooklyn. I know that he's well respected and that this is his third album. But I feel like he lets himself be seen. Because when I had my daughter, that was the Wake Up 529B for my little baby. If you're not from New York, you don't know what a 529B is. If you're not a parent from New York, if you're not a responsible parent from New York, but yeah, I got 529s for my kids. My Patreon, I'll be showing off later. I use most of my Patreon money to buy new music. The rest of it goes into those 529s to make sure my kids can go to college or whatever. So, I mean, really right here, just already, if we just take this, we really see how he's on sort of a different plane than a lot of rappers are, where he's talking very specifically about being present, about appreciating things, and then also this very specific, he's not doing the thing where, I mean, the first rappers I ever talked about trying to protect generational wealth was Wu-Tang Clan. His seeds marry his seeds, marry his seeds. That's how we keep Wu-Tang money all up in the family. But this is much more, I don't know, relatable. This isn't about like staying super rich, and this isn't like Jay-Z giving a Basquiat to Ivy or whatever. It's I'm thinking a lot about Jay-Z because of Nope. Nope is basically the story of OJ, but just for 2.5 hours. Spoiler for my video. Like the reality of trying to make sure your kids are okay for most people who aren't hyper rich is what's shown in this. See? I'm 11 minutes in. I've talked about like 3 lines. It's quite dense. And then he just gets funny and cool. I mean, listen to these rhymes. My lifestyle, a movie, I'm feeling like Scorsese, sexy like Swayze, a bit more wavy, catch me in the Sadies, dirty dancing with your lady. This is great. He's like talking about Swayze, mixing it up, and wavy. She do it like Brady. Really, how could you blame me? Can't relate, so they hate me. That's why I keep a Glock up the waist. It's no safety. So it's nice there because he's talking about it's no safety. Like he has no safety, but then also there's no safety on the Glock on his waist. Like really good wordplay, plus messing around with pop culture references, plus talking about the sense of paranoia that he has. I'm half man, half amazing. I defy the odds. This is the second real direct reference to Nas. Actually, no, there's multiple Nas references on here. I hear a lot of Nas. Like I hear a lot of Illmatic on this album, and I'm somewhat infamous for thinking that Illmatic is not Nas's best album. I actually re-listen to Magic. I think Magic is better, but Nas fans hate me because I take Nas criticism seriously. I ultimately decided that they're right. He is one of the best of all time, but it took me a while to get there. And I think part of the reason why is there's maybe a dryness to his delivery, which I think is shared by Joey Badass. Or I guess I'm mispronouncing that. Joey Bada Oz. Again, pronouncing like Nas, because I never pronounce Nas correctly, because I pronounce it Nas. Because Nas, okay. Anyway, so this half man, half amazing, very clear Nas reference. It does feel like he isn't directly saying it, but he's sort of taking on the role of the next Biggie, the next Nas, the next like New York guy. Leader of my generation, down to die for the cause. We're all fighting the wars, hiding invisible scars. Always going back to this theme of like trauma that he's feeling and experiencing, while at the same time appreciating his current state. And then at the end, just even more gratitude. Every day that we breathe, new opportunities, new lessons, new blessings, no stressing. Then we had this great Ditty outro. The drums are doing some cool stuff, this kind of high toms, and just talking about, coming from the dirt, and when you come from New York, you come from the dirt and the concrete, and you just have to remember. So I don't know what's going on with my hair here. I feel like I'm getting sort of like a weird sort of Karen haircut here, but I'm just going to leave it there. Tell me how bad my hair is in the comments. Hey, there's some engagement there. Or is this actually the way that it should look? This is why I really need to edit my videos, but if I edited my videos, I couldn't do 4 a week. All right, I'm going to go through the rest of the album a little bit quicker here. I'm dressed up like the Hamburglar with a bad haircut. I was going to start off with the song, The Baddest. Robble, robble. The Baddest is the introduction to the album, and it starts right off with Ditty, with Puff Daddy, and it's very clear, like having Puff Daddy on here sends a message that he's showing deference to the old ways, but also he's saying he is the encapsulating those days, saying over and over again, can you say New York City? Can you say New York City? Great production, maybe the best production on the album's on this first song, kind of piano snaps and bars, and then bass, and at the very, very end, muted drums. Here he bravely says he's one of the top 3, Kenny, Joey, and Cole. So, Kendrick Lamar and Joey Badass and J. Cole. Whew, boy. do I like Kendrick more than those other two? I mean, I like those other two a lot, based on what I've heard just now, but wow. He also like quotes Biggie, like they want to see your life ending a couple times throughout the album. It seems that's really who he's really quoting. He just quotes a lot of Biggie and a lot of Nas. Next song is called Make Me Feel. Great production here from Static Selector. It's this cool kind of like catchy hook of this female voice. Make me feel real good. Almost house-like. And this right here is just a this is just bars on bars on bars on bars. I was at the gym while I was listening to this, and I was watching the X Games, the extreme games, where they have like skateboarding and all that. And so I was watching, it was skateboarding, and one of the events in the X Games is the best trick. So you get like 8 tries to just do one thing that's super awesome. Some guy did a 720 ollie front-facing Norcross grind bit, and it was an amazing thing, right? But like, it was very clear. It's a very interesting way of watching skateboarding. Just like, I gotta do this one thing. I say that because that's what this song is. This is Joey Badass making the case for why he belongs in the top 3 of modern rappers: Kenny, Joey, and Cole, right? I mean, in my opinion, it should be, well, maybe Kenny, Conway. I don't know who the third would be. And Ghost, probably. But, he just really is rapping here. I mean, if you just want to hear a song of just someone just rapping and being funny, all my bars appreciate with time, like Patek. Talking about Patek Philippe, and they appreciate with time, but also it's a watch. New Prezi on my wrist, like Joe Biden. Just simple, but funny. Your favorite rappers wouldn't be enough if you combine them. Just like, kind of like really flossing his skill. That's what he's doing here. And this is very useful. This whole first couple tracks on the album got me way up to speed on who Joey Badass was. Where I Belong is another Station Selector song. Great head nodding, 90s style vibe. Very straightforward chorus about like needing to walk around with a gun while also reminiscing a fair amount. But again, going back to the sense of presence is a gift, this is where he starts talking about some of his family members who have passed and like how he got hooked on rhyming, and you really get the feel that this guy is just super happy to be alive and rhyming, and is just so thankful here. Next up is Brand New 9/11. Now this is funny because it's with Westside Gunn of Griselda, who I've already called Buff Daddy. Like I think he's, in a lot of ways, he's a lot like Puff Daddy in his role in hip hop today. So it's funny having those two as being the first 2 guest appearances here. But this song feels like it's trying to be a Griselda style song. I'll tell you why. Because it starts off and it has the West Side, do all that kind of stuff going on. And then the chorus is sung by Joey Badass, but it sounds just like a Stove God Cooks chorus. Brand new 11 off the lot. Like, to the point where I had to like check to make sure it wasn't actually Stove God Cooks. But it's nice, though, because it's about a new car, but it's actually about the way that people buy cars because they feel they need to and they have a sense of emptiness inside them. That kind of stuff, that this sort of move that we've been seeing in hip-hop to more self-awareness, that all the purchasing is just to fill a hole that's usually created by trauma and a feeling of worthlessness that's been pushed into them through societal and familial neglect and cycles of violence and trauma and such, to the point where they just buy stuff to feel better. That's kind of all in here. That's all kind of in this verse. So yeah, it's talking about having a 9 new 11. It didn't even cost a lot. But it's clear that it's also not worth a lot. Westside Gunn's verse is great. It's just filled with punchlines, punchline after punchline. I'm not going to quote them. You should check them out, though. It's very funny. Damn, I'm thirsty. Wow. Sorry, I had a Caesar salad for lunch. It's like really like salty. Damn. Maybe I should get an editor. But just, Westside Gunn, just full of full of punchlines, and then gives himself a little bit of time to do his kind of catchy, slight sing-songy things. And then I believe we hear Squidward at the end. I don't know if this is on purpose. I was too old to watch SpongeBob SquarePants. I don't know why I put so much of a pause there. I was too young. I was too old to watch SpongeBob SquarePants as a kid. But as a parent, I watched it all the time. And I partly think that the reason that the next generation is going to be smarter than my generation is because they grew up with SpongeBob. It's just such a smart and funny show. So this is a little bit of that comedy. But two, like Squidward's a good example of somebody who can appreciate the present. And SpongeBob, and especially Patrick, are these sort of permanently in the present, naively happy people who appreciate things. I don't know if that's on purpose, but let's pretend that it is. Cruise Control is this very soft beat. Almost reminds me of... This is one of two songs this week that reminds me of I Need Love by LL Cool J. Nice kind of like R&B chorus. But then so... There's even they even sort of quote, "It was just a dream." So it seems to be that he's quoting Notorious B.I.G. on purpose, because you realize this whole song kind of feels like Juicy by Notorious B.I.G. You know, like when I talk about the things I don't like about this album by Joey Badass, it's that thing. It's that feeling of like even Juicy is like a song that I like, but like I've never loved that song. The beat is just a little too just, you know? Money getting longer, but happiness has never been bought. Type of ish I'll teach my daughter never was taught to me when I was younger, because that ish wasn't even a thought. Just in these few lines, he's going over what I just said about the new 9/11. Okay, that you can't buy happiness. But when you don't have money, you're not taught that you can't buy happiness, because money might not be able to buy happiness, but if you can't sustain yourself, if you can't stay alive, happiness isn't even possible. So like there is a degree to which the path to happiness has to pass through money if you can't even sustain yourself. And then I think he quotes Ace Ventura, calling someone a loser. I'm telling you, this guy he's like me, watches lots of comedy. That's the sense I get. Then we have Nas Come On, who sort of really just says, like, I like this guy. He has a lot of age on him. Let's go. I remember the first time that Nas and Puffy, I ever saw them work together, and I felt such a sense of betrayal. I was like, no, Nas, not you. Puffy's just a pop sellout. I was such an idiot. I mean, Puff did so much. It's just that he made it look so easy. I don't know, maybe I should do a video about my relationship with Puff Daddy someday. But I did buy No Way Out on cassette. Even though, like, I'll Be Missing You, it was just like the worst song, and it was everywhere. It was everywhere. But I had to have, it's all about the Benjamins. Like, I had to have that. Anyways. So Nas introduces the next song, and it's fun, right? Because we have Puffy, and we have Nas, and the spirit of Biggie. We're all here in the 90s, but the whole time he's really just talking about the present. And here, this beat, I am fairly certain, because in the back, you sort of hear like, And you might be tempted to think it's like the real hip-hop from Mobb Deep, but I don't think that's what it is. I think it's actually a sort of sound-alike to Stakes is High by De La Soul. Now, this is the second time in 2 weeks I brought this up. I just learned 2 weeks ago one of my favorite hip-hop beats of all time, the song Stakes is High by De La Soul off the album Stakes is High, was produced by Jay Dilla. I didn't know. Like, as far as I knew, I didn't know a single Jay Dilla beat. But that has this right vibration, this great sound. Like, if you put those beats together, you put Eulogy and Stakes is High, and you listen to them together, it really does have a very similar vibe. The second most slept on album of the 90s, as far as hip-hop goes, after Onyx's second album. Great album. Good luck finding it. Just this opening quote, just looking at my generation, overdosed on blue pills, caught up in the matrix, gotta spread love though, cause there's a lot of hatred, know it's a marathon, these mother effers racist. Just bars after bars, and then this guy likes comedy, okay? He actually says, swim in mainstream like a hungry hip-hop Optimus. If you've never seen Flight of the Conchords, delightful New Zealand comedy show, there's this whole bit about the hip-hopotamus, which is this great line where the main guy, he goes, "I'm the hip-hopotamus. My lyrics are bottomless." And then just for the next 3 bars, you see him just thinking about something else to say. It's very funny. I'm the hip-hopotamus. My lyrics are bottomless. And then he has nothing else to say. I think these references are all quite intentional. You ain't a great white guy. You're just a great white lie with great ties to what seems to be a great white guy. And then he does a different flow at the end where he actually kind of pitches his voice up slightly. And can I just officially can I just say this? I want more Joey Badass music, but I want more people on his album, more guest appearances. It doesn't have to be I'm not talking like Donda. It doesn't have to be 17 different people on every single song. But if he could just have somebody who can hit be in the high range, or maybe someone in the low range, might just sort of mix up, because that's sort of the main thing that I'm missing here. Even though his rhymes are great at times, I'm just not quite moved, Zip Codes, another great song, another jazzy beat. It's kind of double hi-hat. I'm not a real fan of laid-back hip-hop beats, but this is a good one. You're effing with the realest cat since Larry David. I'm telling you, all he does is sit at home. He doesn't make rap albums. He makes one every 5 years. And the rest of the time, he just spends watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. Realest cat since Larry David, Curvy Enthusiast. It's Lucretia from the Black Lagoon, Snatch Your Jewelryist. It's just very funny. Even one of the last lines, act like my ish don't stink, it's supposed to. Of all the sort of greats that he's trying to be in league with, so far what I really like most is just how easy he is with his kind of sense of humor. He talks about being the GOAT, but he also talks about being underrated. Next song is One of Us, featuring Larry June. This just feels like a great summer jam, kind of a pitched up sample, almost like a old school Kanye beat. More jokes. He says he gives them the tenacious D. Seriously. I think if you took away Joey Badass's HBO login, he would just have no rhymes. He just needs that HBO comedy, I really like Larry June's verse. I don't really know his music at all, but see, this is what I'm saying. I like his low, calm voice. I wish there was more these kind of opposing voices. Okay. Now, gotta have a low light. There's a whole phone call with some guy, and it seems super real. I saw your number in my girl's phone. It just said, rapper, I need to know, were you intimate? And then, like any good 90s rap album, there's just a gross sex song. Just gross and explicit and vulgar, and hit it from the back and blow out the back and back of the back of the back of the back. And then Chris Brown's on there. So listen, the rest of this album, I listened to the songs 3 or 4 times. This one, I listened once, and I will forever skip. I don't need to hear about blowing backs out. I just don't need to hear it. It's... who's it for? It's for women? It's for men? Who wants to hear this? I've been asking this question for decades. Who wants the gross rap sex song? Anyways, not me. And I certainly don't want it if Chris Brown's on there. I'm already this close to just never listening to anything Chris Brown's on, for the whole abuse thing, which I don't know much about. So if I'm speaking out of turn, you can just correct me and say, oh, you don't really understand. But as far as I can tell, he just kind of bums me out. Yeah, so, no. But then we get the song Show Me. Hey, Joey, Jovan, Mr. Badass, which is it? Is it Welcome Back or is it Show Me? Because here we have the song, nice female voice in the back. There's no us without... You cannot spell us without trust. Beautiful line. You cannot spell us without trust. Let's say it again. Let's give this human being, this artist, the time that we need to appreciate a line which you hear for the first time and you think you understand. Oh, it's there's no I in team. Okay. No. You can't spell us without trust. Because you see, you can. It's actually, you can't spell trust without us, but he's spinning it around. So after this whole song with the whole blowing the back out and all that stuff, now we're here where he says, and these, I'm not making these words up. I am not making these words up. Transparency is my love language. Transparency is my love language. Love language, love language, transparency, right after the I banged your girl for 3 days song. I don't know. I actually am fine with it. I'm fine with it. I mean, the sex song stuff, like, it's not my thing, but that might be for somebody. I think it's showing maybe more range, that you can sort of be both things. This is something which, I think obviously of those three, Kendrick very much on his last album talks a lot about, like, being more than just one thing. He's not just the smartest whatever guy. He's also the guy that can write that verse on No Parties in LA, right? Like, he's not like just because you're enlightened and smart and you can make interesting references and you can be a good father doesn't mean that you can't also blow backs out. Okay. I believe it. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Like anyone needs my permission. If I ever needed to edit my videos, it's on this one. I don't know why it is, but I keep messing up. I don't think anyone needs my permission, by the way. I'm just saying that I appreciate it more because it does paint a more fuller picture of a complete human being. There. Wanna Be Loved featuring... Okay, Sky. You don't know, you've seen this guy's name and you've listened to his music before, but you don't know how it's pronounced. You could say Jid, which would be really stupid if his name was pronounced J-I-D. Or you could say J-I-D and sound really stupid, like you aren't confident enough to call someone Jid. So what are you going to call him, Sky? We're going to listen to the song Wanna Be Loved featuring Jide. It has like a jazzy beat, kind of a thin beat, maybe the thinnest beat, but in a way this is really the song that I want the most because it has Jide at the end with this nice high southern voice. Like this great, like, I don't know if he's southern, I think he is, right? Is he from Atlanta? I think so. Right? Isn't he part of the whole J. Cole crew? He has this nice, like, kind of fast, and you correct me if I'm wrong, by the way, it's kind of fast and, like, very sort of southern sounding style, but everything he's saying is meaningful, and it just really balances nicely with Joey Badass's verse. And then we have my favorite lyric on the entire album. No, it's not You Can't Spell Us Without Trust. It's sometimes the pot of gold is the rainbow. Sometimes the pot of gold is the rainbow. This is saying it's not the destination, it's the journey, right? That's what this is saying. It's that sense of being present. But what a beautiful way to inverse a cliche. Head High is the next song, and just, good Lord, this first verse is killer. Just killer. I'm just going to quote part of it. Where I'm from, the stories never end with no happily ever afters, just broken families forced to start new chapters, a natural disaster, the cycle in a loop, and we're caught up in a rapture, not to mention all the other factors, government agendas against rappers, they want to see us either dead or captured. Just great. And broken families forced to start new chapters? Broken families forced to start new chapters? Can we just appreciate the economy of his lyricism in this? All right? The economy of that one line. The amount of things that are implied in that one line and how well he turns it so that it's simple and it hits hard, but it's profound, and the more you think about it, the harder it hits. Where I'm from, the stories never end with no happily ever afters. Just broken families forced to start new chapters. I get it. Great flute sounds in the production, very spiritual, hugging the block, but the block ain't hug us back. This is maybe another good example of a song that sounds very sort of De La Soulish. Okay, is my hair getting like full like late era Phil Spector? What's happening here? Rubble, rubble. Survivor's Guilt. You knew I was going to be happy with a song called Survivor's Guilt. You know, some of my favorite stuff to talk about is trauma. And if you don't believe it, wait till you hear me talk about the chimp. I'm referring to Nope, if you haven't seen it. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, why are you watching my 40-minute video about Joey Bada? You should be finding a IMAX theater and seeing Nope. So, you know, this song is great. It's just built on this very muted drum groove and is really about this loss. So I don't know anything about Joey Badass. Like, I don't know who he's talking about. Somebody whose name is Steez or Stilo, something like that. So here's what I can pick up. So if you're like a Joey Badass fan, great. And you might know exactly who it is. Maybe this is some guy he used to rap with. Maybe it's a guy he grew up with. Maybe it's his best friend. I don't know. But I don't need to actually know because he tells you everything in here. Like, he explains how, like, he had success and Steez didn't. And I don't know how Steez died. Tragically, but I don't know how. But they're both, as he says, trying to make it out of the bottom, and he makes it, and this one is for you. And he says later on in the song, he also talks about one of his cousins or an uncle or something, and he keeps talking about how he's thanking God every time I open my eyes. It's all about the present, about the appreciation, right? About the ability to breathe, the joy that we have. And we get the sense, you know, he says, when I lost my boys, it was like I lost my voice. So maybe this is why he hasn't been rapping for the past 5 years. Maybe he needed to heal. I've been talking on this channel about the observations I've been making about hip-hop music. And I keep coming back to it, that there is this real sense, a massive movement in mainstream, alternative, hybrid of the two, everywhere, of talking about trauma and the results of trauma. Breaking the sort of toxically masculine code of not admitting when you're hurt. The toxically masculine code of always having to be stoic, of acknowledging that these traumas can make you do things you don't want to do. It's everywhere. It feels like every time I talk about a rap album, it feels to me like, I don't know if it started with 808 and Heartbreak, right? But like, I mean, definitely, rappers being in touch with their emotions has only made the genre way stronger, has only made their lyricism way more interesting. Like whatever kind of like masculine, you know, as FT Signifier calls it, the kayfabe of hip-hop, of just being totally stoic in a way, it's going away. It's going away. And even the hardcore rappers, even the ones who talk about crack and being dealers, are talking about their feelings and dealing with their trauma. And this song is just about someone that they lost. You know, a couple people that he lost. And it's not like a one message thing. It's not even going back to Ditty, you know, like I'll Be Missing You. Man, that song is terrible. It's not even a good tribute to Biggie. It's just garbage. It's just a cash grab. You know, like I don't feel like the real emotion in it. Whereas in this song, like I feel the loss. So, final track is Written in the Stars, a reminder to appreciate everything, because we could be Stilo. Whoever that is, we could be him. But instead, he gets to be Joey Badass. So I mentioned my 529Bs. These are the Patreons who helped me to buy music. Son of a... Okay, now I gotta focus. Okay, all right, now 1 second. Okay, I gotta focus on these names. Okay. So these are my Patreons. If you're a Patreon, why don't you see if you see your name there? These are the larger donors. Thank you very much for all that. And you know, let me know what you think about this album. Let me know what my hair actually looks like, because this is just I look like Pete Rose before a shower. I don't know, but we'll see. I'm gonna end the video before 40 minutes. Until next time, there's the camera.